Yes, Team FD, and welcome back to Winners and Losers, the show where we look at the highs and the lows from the game week just past. Joining me on today's very special episode is Joe. How are you, mate?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Bit of a boring weekend, but it is every weekend, isn't it? It's Groundhog Day in lockdown at the moment.
That's it. Positive vibes. That's how we wanted to start the show. Zach, come on, bring the energy, mate. How was your weekend?
Good, mate. Chelsea won. First time in a while. Things are looking up, mate. Things are looking good.
That is the most positive you've been about Chelsea in quite some time as well. So you've saved us there. Just a quick reminder before we delve into the meat and potatoes of this show that it's brought to you by our friends over at Manscaped. And if you've let things get a bit unruly down there, come on, lockdown vibes, then we have you covered. You can get 20% off Manscaped's stellar products and free shipping with the discount code FOOTBALLDAILY. So visit the link on screen or in the description below and you'll be directly supporting the channel, which we very much appreciate in these times. Plus, your balls will thank you, apparently. And on the subject of balls, let's start with that Spurs performance, gentlemen, because it was absolutely woeful, wasn't it? So after losing convincingly at the Amex last night, Spurs have now only recorded 2 victories in their last 10 Premier League games, slipping down to 6th. It's all looking very familiar. And they're currently level on points with Chelsea, but 6 points behind Leicester, who occupy that last Champions League spot, although they do have a game in hand. So a quick first question for you, Zach. Who's better to secure that 4th spot? Who's better equipped at this point in the season, Chelsea or Tottenham? Very quick thoughts.
With the way it's looking, probably Chelsea. I mean, the performance yesterday from Spurs was abysmal, to be quite honest. But Brighton haven't won a game at home in an extremely long time, and along came Spurs, and they just said, "Here, we'll lose, don't worry." That's what it kind of felt like. At least with Chelsea, there seems to be this, at a very minimum level, the new manager bounce, right? The kind of, no matter who really came in charge at Chelsea, the run of fixtures coming up were always going to look winnable, especially with Sheffield United as well after we play Spurs on Thursday. And that'll be the big game, I guess, if Mourinho can take 3 points from Chelsea and puts him in a much more powerful position than it is right now. But after watching them against Brighton, and then obviously watching Chelsea against a Burnley side who a couple of games ago beat Liverpool, it's not looking anywhere near as bright for the north side of London. There just seems to be no coherent kind of play, especially attacking wise. Defensively, not great, but they managed to keep Brighton to just 1 goal. Even if Brighton had maybe a guy that could score goals, that could have been maybe 3, to be quite honest. But yeah, especially attacking wise, without Harry Kane, it's like they just have no idea what to do. So in terms of top 4 out of those 2, yeah, it definitely seems like Chelsea are in the better position.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it early on in your answer then. Momentum being a key thing here. This feels like very familiar territory with Tottenham, where the results are starting to go against them. Jose's relationship with various players has been brought into question. Of course, not helped by the fact that Serge Aurier was dropped for this game after being hauled off at half-time in that loss to Liverpool. And Moussa Sissoko played right back, didn't he? Right wing back in this game. But he did say after the match, the Portuguese manager Joe, that he was pleased with the second half showing. It couldn't really get much worse after having just 1 shot in the first half. That's the 6th time, by the way, a Spurs side under Jose has had 1 shot or less, which is 0 shots in the first half of a Premier League fixture. But the hot topic this morning is whether Gareth Bale is still good enough to compete at this level, or the level where Spurs want to be, which is top 4, right? So, Joe, what did you make of his performance and the sort of general reaction to it?
Yeah, I think it was pretty appalling, to be honest with you. I didn't think he played well at all. And I think it was quite telling in Jose's post-match press conference when he said that they were much better for the final 30 minutes when Gareth Bale wasn't on the pitch. And I think he was clearly saying to the fans and to the board with that statement that, look, I don't believe Gareth Bale is enhancing the team at the moment. And partially, I believe he's probably right. I think Tottenham fans going into that game, a lot of them were saying, we want to see Gareth Bale get minutes. We want to see him playing through the middle. We want to see him at least out wide. Certainly that's what Sonny Snelling was saying in a WhatsApp with me yesterday. And when you see him out there, you think, what's he adding to the team? And I didn't see him add anything. And I don't know whether that's just Gareth's fault, because the whole team felt a bit messy yesterday, didn't it? The 3-4-3 didn't work at all. I didn't understand what the point of buying Doherty as a wing-back is if you're not going to use him in a wing-back system. He's on the bench yesterday. I'm not sure whether he's injured or what, but certainly fit enough to make the bench. Overall, though, I have very little sympathy for Jose Mourinho. We've all seen this happen too many times. Players start to get alienated, play a pretty tragic brand of football, and then it all falls apart very rapidly over the course of 6 months, doesn't it? It happened at Manchester United, it happened at Chelsea, it's happened plenty of times in the past. I don't see any attacking patterns on the field without Harry Kane starting and ending nearly every single move. So yeah, I would be extremely worried if I was a Tottenham fan, because Jose classically hasn't been able to arrest this issue in at least in recent years. And the Chelsea game on Thursday is massive now for him. He's not going to get sacked, don't get me wrong. He won't get sacked because he's got them to an EFL Cup final. And before he took over, I remember I was on Sky Sports News saying, look, Tottenham fans here, you're making a deal with the devil. If you are willing to sacrifice pretty much all of your footballing performance and you're going to potentially sacrifice some young players to win an EFL Cup, then absolutely fine. That's what we're seeing. You know, they're sacrificing probably Dele Alli here, aren't they? He's surely not going to remain at the club come the summer. They're probably sacrificing top 4 at the moment, but they might win an EFL Cup at the end of the year. And I think if you ask Tottenham fans, would you take finishing 9th if you won an EFL Cup? Quite a few of them would probably say yes, because they're that starved of silverware. I just think the whole thing at Tottenham is getting a little bit ugly, and I would be concerned if I was a Tottenham fan.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about mid-table, it is sort of starting to beckon, isn't it? Especially if Aston Villa and Everton win their games in hand. They'd both climb above Chelsea and Tottenham in that regard. But just to finish off on Gareth Bale then, I mean, he's only completed, I think, 1 full 90 since his return to the club, and that was against Wickham. And even after the game, if we're, you know, with Jose, you kind of have to read between the lines in his post-match conference. You just kind of hinted at it there, right, with Jose highlighting the final 30 minutes. He said after that Wickham game, you know, apart from that, I never felt he couldn't play the 90 minutes. I never felt that I needed to change him, and that is good. I mean, that is a backhanded compliment if ever Gareth Bale has received one. Like, I didn't feel the need to take Gareth Bale off, Champions League winner off, against Wickham. He just about pulled through. So I think it's safe to say that he's not overly confident in the Welshman's fitness at this moment, and hopefully that is the issue, and it's not attitude, and it's not relationship, and everything is fine behind the scenes. We don't know, do we? And I just want to point out, because Zach highlighted it as well, shout out to Pascal Gross, who absolutely ran that game. He deserved more than 1 assist. Aaron Connolly somehow hitting Alderweireld from about 4 yards out. But nevertheless, let's move on to our winner then, because it comes from I'm Ganesha, and it could have been Manchester City. They won 9 games in January, so it feels harsh not to include them. But we've gone for I'm Ganesha's suggestion, like I said, Callum Wilson, who almost single-handedly put an end to Newcastle's run of 11 games in all competitions without a victory, scoring 2 against the Toffees at Goodison. I mean, Joe, you pinged the WhatsApp group saying that he should have had 5 goals. So safe to say you thought Everton deserved nothing from this game.
Oh, Everton were appalling on the weekend. And look, I want to firstly, let's heap some praise on Newcastle, because we have battered them, haven't we, in recent weeks? And rightly so. They've been playing some appalling football. But that was probably their best display since that 3-1 victory over Burnley earlier in the season. They were really, really impressive on the weekend. They definitely... Look, I don't think Callum Wilson should have scored 5, but he could have scored 4 very comfortably. He missed a really good one-on-one in the first half where the ball is played into him. I can't remember who whipped it in. It might have been Almiron. It might have been Fraser, actually. Whipped it across and he put it wide. He missed a really good header, or it was a good save in the first half from Pickford. But overall, he was immense on the day. I think he's contributed to 67% of Newcastle's goals this season, and rightly so, because he's pretty much the lone man keeping them out of the relegation spots at the moment. But they can certainly build on the weekend's display. I thought moving to a 4-3-3 actually really worked for them, with Almiron and Fraser kind of flanking Wilson. I was listening to Steve Bruce's post-match press conference, and he was saying that he'd kind of chosen to use Wilson a little bit wider, and I think that showed. He did pull wide, and he pulled onto the fullbacks quite a lot, and it worked to great success at the weekend because he was absolutely instrumental in that game. But as for Everton, they just looked so off the pace. Maybe it was just a bad week. Let's just put it down to a bad week. But they were completely outplayed by Newcastle. And I have to say, hats off to Steve Bruce, because this was an excellent all-round performance.
Yeah, they're absolutely toilet against Leicester as well. Leicester thoroughly deserved all 3 points midweek at Goodison Park.
Do you know what as well? Not to interrupt you, just wanted to point out a shout-out to Will Brazier here, actually. I think it might have been last week's winners and losers, or potentially the week before, when he said just keep your eye on Graham Jones going into the Newcastle backroom staff. He could make a little bit of a difference. I actually think he seems to have made a pretty big difference immediately, at least tactically. Obviously gone in as Steve Bruce's right-hand man, and tactically on the weekend, which is what Graham Jones has been brought in for, I thought they were at their best this season.
Yeah, people on Twitter enjoying the fact that he's come in and got a victory straight away, and almost seemed to be kind of, it diminishes Bruce's efforts in turning the ship around. But let's move on to Everton then, because they have lost 4 home games this campaign, which is the joint most in any season in Carlo Ancelotti's managerial career. And Zach, I wanted to ask you, as a Chelsea fan, and not to keep harking on about Tuchel's men, but do you actually fear Everton as rivals for the top 4, or do you think it's one season too soon for them to go the whole hog? An awful lot of football left to play, and they kind of seem to be slipping away at the moment.
I think if it was a normal season, you would say the latter. That it's maybe a season too soon. Obviously, with the signings that they've made, like James Rodriguez and all these kind of guys, Alan, their first season in the Premier League, and doing what they do to the point where they are now is a pretty good return. However, with the way the season's gone so far, if it continues, right, I mean, about 4, 5, 6 different teams could be fighting for that 4th spot in the Champions League, to be quite honest. It really has got to this point where anyone can beat anyone. You see Liverpool losing to Burnley. You see Sheffield United beating Manchester United. So people are dropping points against games where you would have realistically thought they'd be picking them up. So anyone can beat anyone. It gets to this bit where it could really, the deciding factors could be the games when they play each other. So when Chelsea play Everton, when United end up playing Everton and things like this. So they're the games that are going to matter the most personally for the Toffees. It is definitely possible. The players that they have, they've got Champions League players already in that squad. Just looking at the likes of Alan and James Rodriguez. I mean, defensively still maybe a bit suspect. Is Jordan Pickford a Champions League goalkeeper? In my opinion, definitely not. Because he had a rough game. But I mean, that whole Everton defence wasn't too great. So yeah, I think they can possibly do it this season, but only because of the situation of how the season's been with the coronavirus and all of that.
You're a wise man, hedging your bets. It's a sensible thing to do this season, isn't it? And you mentioned Alan a couple times there, and I actually thought they really, really missed him in this game. I mean, James was dropping deep. He looked so frustrated in order to progress the ball. Just sort of zero verticality in Sigurdsson or Doucouré's passing. It was
verticality.
It was like picking up the ball, Ralph Rangnick special, mate. Picking up the ball and rolling it to Luca Digne and hoping, like they do an awful lot, to be honest. They're very dependent on him, aren't they?
Yeah.
Creatively speaking, hoping he could whip a good ball in the box and that Calvert-Lewin would pick it up. And I thought Newcastle just managed them out of the game in that regard. Almiron was pressing those deep lying midfielders, and they just couldn't create or progress the ball in any meaningful way. So I think he's set to return soon, the Brazilian. I think it's going to be a week or so, and they are in desperate need of that energy from deep. Let's move on to our losers. We've already mentioned them. Everton's opponent midweek. It is Leicester, and this comes from Folds Ashley, who suggested Leeds, but I've crowbarred Leicester into the losers. And they were unbeaten, the Foxes, in 7 games going into this tie. Form only matched by Manchester City in the league. And like we said, they're putting a really good display midweek, but consistency at home at the King Power continues to be a big problem. 5 of their 6 Premier League losses have come at home, which is a pretty wild record when you think about it. But like you've already said, Zach, very, very unpredictable this season, very tumultuous. We're missing Vardy, we're missing Ndidi, which obviously doesn't help. Vardy having that hernia operation a week ago. I think he's back as well this week at some point, which is great for them. Joe, do you think they need to dip into the market on deadline day, or do you think they have enough in their squad at the moment to secure UCL football? Because depth was their big issue in the back end of the season last season, right?
They've got enough in the squad at the moment to secure Champions League football, given the state of some of the other teams around them. It's going to be a real dogfight for that top four. I think at the moment what we're seeing, especially on social media, is like some really irate reaction to bad results. Like every team at the moment that's involved in that top four race is dropping points they shouldn't be dropping, and everybody is immediately writing them off or saying they are nonsense, they are rubbish. I wouldn't be too concerned if I was Leicester. I think Leeds can do this to you, and I actually thought, not that Leicester were bad, but I thought Leeds were as good as Leicester were bad, if that makes sense. Like, I thought Leeds were really impressive on the day, got it spot on. And although Leicester, without Vardy, don't quite have that cutting edge, I thought it's almost like they didn't even play that badly, I didn't think. I thought Leeds
they had chances. They had chances that they missed. Several.
Yeah, exactly. And Vardy probably snaffles them up. But I just thought Leeds were at their absolute best at the weekend. Probably the best I've seen them play against one of the top sides in the Premier League this season, because they've obviously struggled pretty majorly against the big boys, setting up and have been quite vulnerable.
Yeah.
But against Leicester, I thought they were maybe more so in the first half than the second, but they were pretty dominant. They were definitely in control of the game for large periods. And this is a Leeds outfit that have struggled really badly with centre-back issues all season. I think the centre-back pairing that's been most used, and Bielsa would probably want to use the most, is Koch and Cooper. They've only played together 5 times this season. They've had so many injuries. The weekend it was Cooper and Strujic. So they are going to give up some chances because of those sort of issues. But at the weekend, I just thought, to a man, they were excellent. And obviously Patrick Bamford decided to turn into sort of prime Ronaldo. So at the end of the day, Leicester, a little bit of a blip, but I just think we should heap praise on Leeds more so than say that Leicester could fall out of the top 4.
Yeah, I think Leeds are a bit more resolute, which is what you were saying there, and they're actually good for their 3 points. Like, against top sides, they can look a little bit fragile, like the results can go either way. But I think Leicester had control over the game, but in ineffective areas. Like, the penetration was bad, wasn't it? Perez, my issue with Perez is that, like, he's not Jamie Vardy, basically, which is
yeah.
It feels cruel to hold that over him, but he's just not a lone striker. He's like an above average right winger, and he's an okay little finisher, but his hold up play was bad. Like, he was getting in the way of Johnny Evans at the back post. There was another opportunity as well where he sort of crossed wires with Harvey Barnes, James Maddison. So yeah, the chemistry up front in the absence of Vardy, bad. Zach, this victory for Leeds though moves them up to 12th, and they now have a goal difference. I thought this was pretty interesting, of -1, which is better than Palace, Wolves, Newcastle, who all play, safe and sensible football. So where do you think, is the ceiling for this Leeds side? And, you've played pro clubs with Patrick Bamford. Is he a nice guy, mate?
He is a lovely guy. He is a lovely guy. Always in Warzone. Loves Warzone. We got him as a friend on the PlayStation, but he is a really nice guy, and he was great yesterday. I think that was his best game in a Leeds shirt in the Premier League. Because when they got promoted, he was the one that a lot of question marks were over. Could he be that kind of, obviously the lone striker? Can he be a Premier League goal scorer for them and score what would be needed at least into double figures, trying to get more around that 15 range? And so far he's looking to do so. He has missed some opportunities throughout the season, but every striker does. And I think Leeds are in an interesting point where they're going to be fine. I think they're going to be mid-table this season. I think when they first came up, I think some of us maybe thought they'd have the same effect Wolves did when they first came up, and we're already looking to maybe try and challenge for Europe straight away. I don't think that's quite the case just yet, because realistically, their team is still very much the same team they had in the Championship. They have added players, and they've added well. Rafinha's been a great signing for them. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Jack Harrison, because I think he's still on loan. I think he's a player they have to get in.
I think it's an obligation to buy at the end of this loan deal for £8 million. I could be wrong,
that's
but
brilliant. That's
brilliant
perfect, because he also was amazing yesterday. Him and Bamford were the two kind of standouts. But yeah, they've still got kind of a side which is predominantly, Championship players. I think they can fill those up with a few more players who can maybe take them to that next level, and they may be even looking at possibly trying to break into that kind of 10th, 9th, 8th place and kind of take it on from there. I think it's something which a lot of people are happy to maybe discredit Leeds, because a lot of pundits will say obviously they play attractive football, but that doesn't get them results, but they're happy to see them play nice football. But Leeds are a good team, and Bielsa has shown this season that he can kind of cut his teeth in the Premier League. It's just about being able to maybe take them to that next level with good acquisition in the summer and investment. And if they can do that and get the right players, I really think they can improve year on year, and eventually maybe even try to start looking at Europe in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it, that some conservative quarters of the media are sort of like, how dare you stick to your guns and not be more pragmatic when you're losing games?
Yeah.
And then when they do win, some people, maybe a bit reluctant to give them the credit they deserve, particularly, like Joe said, the defensive performance in this game, very good against a very good Leicester side. So a little bit more well-rounded than maybe people give them credit for. And it's also interesting, the point you made about new signings, because obviously spent a lot of money in the summer, and maybe that heightened expectations a little bit, but a lot of those signings have been out injured, haven't they? Koch, Joe mentioned him already. Llorente has been plagued with injuries. Rodrigo had to go off, didn't he? So they're missing quite a lot of their new players. And yeah, this core of players has done very well to carry them to this point. I mean, if they went down, they would be one of the best sides, along with Brighton, to go down in the Premier League. I think there's teams much more deserving of the drop than them. So long may it continue. And, long may the numbers game continue. Zach, you're making your debut today. We only do one of these now. You get one question only.
What's this?
I'm going to briefly explain it to you. There's just a number from a fixture we haven't mentioned, and you have to. I'll give you the fixture, and you have to guess the context.
Okay.
And if you do, eternal glory. And if you don't,
okay,
just swiftly move on. Right, you can kick us off.
This is good.
Zach, so the number is 2, and it's from the Chelsea game, the Chelsea-Burnley game. Okay, it doesn't have to specifically relate to that fixture as well. It can be a theme. It can be something relating to Chelsea's season.
2.
Let's see how well you know your own club.
I think I know this one.
I know Burnley only had one shot.
Oh yeah, it was only one, wasn't it? That was my
opinion. That was in the 90th something minute. 2. Cesar Azpilicueta has scored 2 goals against Burnley.
Oh, I love that outlandish guess, but it's not. No, it's Thomas Tuchel was the first Chelsea manager to keep a clean sheet in his first 2 Premier League games since Rafa Benitez in 2012. A tough one, really tough one to open your account with. Joe, your number is 21, and it's from the Liverpool and West Ham game.
Oh my goodness, 21.
And
is that the amount of goals Mo Salah scored this season?
It is spot on. And for a bonus point, can you guess how many seasons he's scored 20 plus goals in consecutively?
For Liverpool, I think it's 3, isn't it?
It's 4, mate. It's
4.
now 4.
4.
So he's the first player since Ian Rush to do that, and Rush did it 6 times.
What a touch as well, by the way. That ball. Oh my God!
Filth.
What a touch!
Absolutely filth. Well, that actually takes us nicely, Zach, into our moment of the weekend, which is how we're going to round off the show. And basically, 3 moments submitted by our fans on Twitter, and you guys have to pick your the best one, effectively, the one you agree with most.
Enough.
So Piercy Cameron has sent in Shaq Ball, Salah touch, which relates to what you just saying, which is absolutely divine.
It's up there, isn't it?
Absolutely divine. Ray Flynn has said, please lads, will you denounce VAR as losers after that disallowed goal in the Southampton game? And Craig Barron Min has said, St Mirren securing their first victory at Celtic Park in 30 years.
I think Joe. I think we go with Celtic losing, Joe.
Brilliant.
Personally,
I mean, they're just so far into the mud, aren't they? Exodus coming in the summer, about 38 points behind Rangers now. No 10 in a row.
How is it, Amel? How is it, Amel?
It must be nice.
Did you think it would be this bad?
No. No, this is like a historically bad season, and a season that was supposed to be historic. But we've signed John Joe Kenny on loan, so, you know.
Hey, silver linings, mate.
Maybe he's coming in as player manager. I'd rate that. That is it. So, Zach's voted for St Mirren. Joe, were you going with the Shaq Ball Salah touch, or were you going with St Mirren as well?
I'll go with the Shaq Ball Salah touch. I think that it's just ridiculous. It's very good to see Mo Salah kind of arrest that little mini slump. I think, was it 6 or 7 Premier League games he hadn't scored in, even though he's still been playing really well. Just mainly because he is my draft number 1, and when he's not playing, I'm so I'm actually delighted to see him back and firing, to be honest.
We're at that point of the season as well that seems to be becoming like perennial, where he's gone for a tiny slump, you know, by his lofty standards, and he's gone into like angry Mo Salah, like Hulk Mo Salah, you know, where he doesn't celebrate after he scores. And it just looks super serious, which is game over for everyone else, isn't it? Anyway, let's round off the show by thanking Manscaped for sponsoring winners and losers. And just a gentle reminder, you can get 20% off by using the code on screen now. Visit the link in the description to take advantage of that. Like we said at the start of the show, you would be supporting us directly. So mucho love for that. Zach, what is happening in the world of Snapchat?
Well, over on Snapchat, we are giving you 2 shows all the time. If you follow the Football Daily account, you get a show every single day talking about everything to do with football. I think currently we're doing a story about Lionel Messi and his lofty wages. And also, we've got a show called Transfer Talk, where we bring you all the updates about transfers. And it's deadline day today, so make sure you check that out as well.
Nice. I think I've heard that show before. Joe, what have you got to plug, mate?
Not too much, to be honest with you, mate. Go and check out Sunday Vibes if you haven't already. We're discussing whether or not the sacking of Frank Lampard was the right call. But yeah, other than that, not too much.
Zach, right call or wrong call, very quickly to round out the show.
50-50.
Oh, he's sitting on the fence.
Bottled it. Big bottle.
Anyway, right, like, subscribe, go check out Snapchat, 'cause it's great content over there. And yeah, we'll see you next week on Winners and Losers. Bye.